Let's move on to texture, that untouched aspect, another visual element that's really important. Remember our football? In this photograph, we see the surface of that object, and because of the way light and shadows play across its surface, we are emphasizing its texture. Texture is another one of the visual elements that we use to add meaning and, yes, texture to our photographs. Scientists tell us that the sense of touch is the least used of all our senses, less than sight, hearing, taste, and smell. When you think about all the textures that surround you in your life, and all the times during the day that you're touching something, from the smoothness of a cup of coffee in the morning to the feeling of the pillow on your face when you go to sleep at night, even if it is the least used, it really is an essential sense that we use to navigate the meaning of the world. Emphasis on texture can make things appear more real for the viewer, especially those everyday things that are part of most people's lives. When we make them even more present through the emphasis on texture, they can make an impact on the viewer that is sometimes so powerful that they begin to feel hungry or actually begin to salivate just looking at a picture of cookies like this one. Do you feel a little bit of hunger right now? I know I do. As photographers, we use sophisticated lenses for focusing our pictures that allow us to convey an amazingly powerful statement about that least used of our senses, and can give our viewers entirely new understandings of ordinary scenes and ordinary things. However, no matter how sharp our lenses are, in most cases, we need another element to help us convey that sense of touch. And that element is light, with its counterpart, shadow. As an example of how important light and shadow are, look at this picture. We all know that these parrots were covered with feathers and that some of those feathers were ruffled or tilted or overlapped. In other words, that their texture was certainly in evidence. In this photograph, however, the main message about the parrots is one of color, not texture, because the birds are positioned in a very soft, omnidirectional light that does not create the highlights and shadows that are so important to convey texture. Contrasting textures is another technique we can use to give our viewers new insights. Here, the distinct, rough texture of the rocky wall and moss is interrupted by the smooth shells of the snails. In this picture, the texture of skin, something we're all very familiar with, provides a solid counterpoint to the textures of the lacy accents on a Mexican woman's embroidered blouse. Never underestimate the textures that your viewer knows but takes for granted, like skin. When you make someone very aware of something that they generally ignore in everyday life, you can make a powerful statement. Just because something is colorful, I don't want you to think it won't be a good subject for emphasizing texture. Here, the contrast of textures on the wall and the textures of the wood fence below contrast well enough on their own, but with the addition of color, they give an even more powerful message about the neighborhood in Mexico where I made this picture. Now, when the word texture comes to mind, we usually think first of roughness, but be on the lookout for scenes where you can emphasize smoothness and convey the essence of something like a flower that is associated with that particular attribute. Shiny surfaces like water have their own unique textural qualities that can be contrasted with others too. In cases where you're trying to convey smoothness, you may find yourself waiting for a cloudy day or other situation where the light will be soft without hard shadows. When objects in the scene are so close in color and the lighting is soft and shadowless, the impression of smoothness can be quite powerful. Whatever you focus on as your subject, being mindful of the effects of texture and choosing to emphasize or minimize them in your photography are critical to success.